Here I am. Here I am. You're a tomorrow person. Yep. And you're the tomorrow people. I'm your tomorrow Sensei Al Bob. And today is Cloned Tuesday. And I'm just waiting. It's 29:31 seconds. Not quite a minute. See if anybody shows up within a minute. So some really good friends of mine called me up from Asheville, North Carolina. And I left Asheville in 98 because I got there in 91, like the December 91, maybe, 92. And I had another project. I went from Cornell, and someone said, "Oh, wow, you should, go, wow, you did a great job here, there's a company that, does work for us. I was working for an institute, and one of their clients, had a project to recalibrate Asheville, North Carolina, because it had been stuck in amber since 1929 because they borrowed a chunk of change in the 20s to make it into the Paris of the South. And then the Depression came, and they didn't finish paying off their Depression debt until 1996. So nobody would lend the money. They didn't build anything. There were no malls, no this, no that. Even though the Biltmores and Astors were there, that, Biltmore House was there. And the family who kind of de-evolved that bloodline, basically, they were living in it. And the kids were using the Louis XIV furniture as hockey goals. So anyway, the state of North Carolina, the federal government, the National Endowment of the Arts said, this is a travesty. We have to save this from you guys. So listen, you owe us millions of dollars in back taxes. We will forgive that. You can still own everything, but we're taking it over in a nonprofit. And those are the people who hired me to photograph every chunk of furniture and spoon. And there was a woman who was a demographer who was brilliant. She was an aesthetic demographer, right? And of course, she and I hit it off like gangbusters because we were both not from there. So it was like, and we had the keys to the kingdom. We could go look at anything. And so we did. And we photographed it. And she was brilliant at putting all of that data into a digital database. So if you ever go look at, the Biltmore House in Asheville, North Carolina, and look at, I'm sure there are lots of remains of our work in whatever those people are doing with what we did with. So you might go take a look. And, my photographs, I'm sure they're in there. And unless they're really, people always steal my everything, but I'm happy with it, I was happy when John splashed me all over his channel and called it him. He didn't even use my name. And when he started making money over it, well, he could complain about how it was costing him money because he felt guilty about it. Anyway, and that's when John gets testy with me and blames me for things and wants to have an excuse to get rid of me. It's because he's feeling guilty about this is something humans do of suffer. When I was a shrink and I did, marriage counseling, it was like, really? You guys love each other? Anyway, so I have loads of friends in Asheville who stayed there. I left because I had the access, keys to the kingdoms. I saw things that most people didn't see and saw how toxic that place was. There were a lot of issues there. And no one faced anything, even though I tried to say, hey, maybe we should fix this over here. And like the air, the water, anything within 200-mile radius of Oak Ridge is radioactive because they wanted to, it's part of the, national security state. You don't put all your eggs in one basket. You spread them around. And then you have your Joe working on just one little thing. He has no idea. He knows that he's working on this little thing, but he doesn't know how it fits in the big picture, right? He doesn't even know what the big picture is. And Asheville, just like Ithaca, just like a lot of other little towns all across America, have that. And that's why, the national security state was smart, bought all the politicians. So all these politicians and all these have to bring home bacon. And part of that is for the national security state to have some laboratory or library or study group or manufacturing facility doing their little thing. And that way we have no idea what the heck they're doing, right? And the other side of the coin is if you want to keep something secret, the government can do a pretty good job at it. Because right now, what's going on with the government being, closed, but only a quarter of it. The other 3 quarters are, still going. But the 1 quarter, if you go look at who isn't getting paid, who's closed, what database you can't access, that's what you should go look at because then you'll see what's going on. And I'm a trained guy to look at patterns, right? So anyway, so Asheville was a great place to do that. I was there 9 years. I loved it. And when there was nobody there, it wasn't that toxic. But now that there's, right now, 1 million cars drive through Asheville downtown North Carolina because they have I-26 and I-40 going right through the city. And they have 240. And so they're the whole city, the whole valley, and it's this bowl. It's not even a valley. Roanoke's a valley. So we have 2 ends opened in the west and in the east. And the air blows through. Yeah, it gets kind of dirty, but at least it blows through. Asheville, not at all. So the air, and they don't keep statistics, meaning the health department doesn't keep statistics on airborne pollution. And they have, NOAA is there, and they categorize and put together the demographic databases for everywhere on the planet, but not at Asheville, North Carolina. I wonder why. They have all the experts to do it, and those guys used to be my buddies because I was a demographer, and my sweetie pie partner she was a demographer, and we had the keys to the kingdom. We in that whole valley from Waynesville, pretty much up to Irwin, right up to the border there. So, because the effect of the Biltmores were from pretty much actually from Atlanta up to where Kodak was. I forget the name of the place. And Johnson City and where the racetrack is and where Kodak is, those were all brought there by the Astors and the Biltmores and a few other of those old money families who own, the DuPonts and all those guys, the Kodaks. Anyway, so we had the keys to the kingdom to go look at all of what was going on. Eden, Sasquatch is everywhere. And you being the first one to chime in, our this evening's little meditative journey is going to go into the land of Sasquatch, into Sasquatch's dimension. You're going to meet him. You're going to hang out with the family. Okay. So it's 9 minutes, not even 10 minutes. Oh, it's 3 of you. So who else is there? Yes, Phase Walker. Phase walkers, excellent. And what do we do when we go into state? We are phase walkers ourselves. Skinwalkers Totally different thing. Skinwalkers are people. So when if you die, I don't know if John wanted me to do, the John Birmingham Paranormal show, right? And we sat down on the couch. So I wasn't just, the star. You're always the star. Why do I do put him right next to me, right? And if you go look at that one, John is actually pretty good, And John has a way of, when he can be comfortable, he can, we did that one show and it was a pretty good show. I don't know how many people watch it. I don't, have access like he does to anything. But it was pretty good. So, it was a live chat. So he wants to he wants to be a movie guy. And so he shoots it and then he has to edit it for, 40 hours. I said, well, why don't you just do live chats like I do? So that was the first one we did of that thing. And we haven't done one since. So, bottom line, I told a story about, somebody asked what's ghost, right? And someone said, so have you ever been around anybody who's died? Because he told a story about when he went off to California the last time. He was staying in a motel, and it was a kind of, cruddy motel, but he bought, had the food Uber bring him like a $70 meal. He said, very expensive meal, whatever it cost. So he could feel rich, right? So they brought it to him, and there was a guy right next to him dying. And he was picking up on the guy's etheric energy because he didn't hear, but he felt, or he thought he felt someone saying, help me, I'm right. So he tells that story, which is, and I'm looking at him etherically and going, yep, that's exactly what happened. And then when I discuss to him what happened, he kind of freaks out. And then he wants, so did you ever see any, that was his only experience with death. And I said, buddy, I've died 6 times, so I got some experience with death. Plus, I was a fireman. And what we did as firemen, there was above our firehouse, about 10 miles away, was a big trailer camp. And it was pretty much with everybody who was on welfare or Social Security, old folks and we went up there twice a week at least to either get a body or scrape them back, spark them back to life and bring them to the emergency room, to the hospital. And so that was one place we went. And the other place was about 15 miles from the house. There was 2 interstates, 91 and something else that crossed each other right there. And instead of building a cloverleaf, they just X'd the 2 highways across each other. So big trucks would run over little cars and not even know it, right? And so at least 3 times a week, we scrape people off the road. Really, really nasty. But we got really good at clipping people out of those, jaws of life and all of those pneumatic tools. And we practiced. We had a lot of practice 3 times a week. After about a year of doing that, we were good. And I was sent off to be a first responder medical tech EMT, right? And so we would show up, and plus I lived across the street from the firehouse, so I also got trained to drive the fire truck, right? And so it had all the it had like 2,500 gallons of water, had all the heavy pumping stuff and the hoses and all our tools, all the welding tools, all the tools, and we really spunked that truck up, meaning we put, instead of having this thing we had to lug out and start up, we put a pneumatic, because we had a couple of rocket scientists from Cornell who were part of our crew, and they were women, and they made our fire truck. Then a few years later, when I no longer was part of it, those girls started a company that made fire trucks. So anyway, we had quite the cadre, and I joined that. I lived across the street from this firehouse, not knowing that it was a firehouse, because the front of the firehouse was the other direction, right? So I just saw the back of the thing. And it wasn't one of those firehouses where you drive through. It was an old school where they had to back up into it. So anyway, one day I saw these pretty girls going into this building. So I kind of walked across the street and went up the hill and went into the building, and I said, girls, what is it? And there was like, I don't know, 25 women were they wanted to be firemen. About four of them were firemen, and the others were in county establishments. They were like inspectors, fire inspectors, but they wanted to be firemen, right? Have the truck. So, one of the girls who was like a lieutenant in the Ithaca Fire Department was our captain. And the other two girls there were, the lieutenants and the next in line. And so these girls knew what they were doing before I even showed up. And the guys were like, forget it. But one was a teenage boy because the state of New York, if you were in high school you joined a volunteer fire department, the state of New York would pay for your college. I don't know if they still do that, but that was an amazing program. I mean, if they made me king, I would make everyone have to do something for their community. And for that service, they would get, single payer free health care, like they have in most of the non-de-evolved, industries. And I would guarantee their, whatever education, they want to go to trade school, they want to go to college, they want to go to, as long as you want, as long as what you know. So, look at that just for a second. Okay, back again. So anyway, there I was a fireman. I got well trained to drive the fire truck. And my real deal was I was the guy and I would do the assessment. We'd show up on the scene and the captain did all the technical stuff, put out the hoses, did this, got all the equipment, planted the truck where it was. And what I would do is I would be the person with my really strong flashlight looking around to see anyone was in the vehicle, where they were, how we were going to get them out, whether they had, like a stick shift up their butt or the steering wheel through their chest, or, you know, how, whether they were dead or alive, And also, I got very good at because I had this little knack of etherically going into them, and I could see whether they were going to survive or not, and whether they wanted to survive or not, too. That was the other interesting thing. So, that's, and I did that for 3 years. So I must have seen, well, just the raw thing. Okay, 3 car crashes a week, 52 weeks, 3 times 50, 150 times 2. So maybe 300 bodies a year that we had to scrape off the highway. And then 2 times a week up to the trailer camp for heart attacks, times, 2 times 365. That's about, 600, give or take. 3 years, that's, 2,000 maybe, give or take. So out of those 2 categories, I would say I dealt with at least 100 people dying. Not dead, dying. They're not going to make it. They're dying. I'm the guy who's holding their hand. They're dying, right? And I'm etherically going, And there were at least maybe 50 to 60 folks who were dead when we got there. We didn't have to do anything except, they're dead. And we called the ME, but usually the cops were there. And the cops were the guys who would call the ME, right? And we always showed up, whether they were dead or not. So had a lot of that experience. So I could tell you about a lot of stories of people dying. But the most interesting, because I wanted to talk about ghosts, right? And what I did was I was like the guy at the, keep breathing, what are you seeing? And I would ask them, what are you seeing? How, what, how do you feel? When we get there, somebody who was like with a, steering wheel through their chest, they'd be screaming, that hurts, And then when within 10 or 15 minutes, if they're still screaming, then they're going to make it to the hospital. But when they said, well, it doesn't feel that bad. I don't feel that bad. And then their eyesight, they said, I can't really, what's it look like? I said, it doesn't look that bad. And I start talking to them like that. And then if they lost more than 3 senses, and they're on their way out. And so I kind of, talked to them and kind of helped them, and I'd ask them about what their life was and who they loved and who they loved who was dead, and could they hear their voices? Did they see them? Because they weren't seeing me, or the big hole in their chest. And you know, that's kind of was my job. To be able to get them to the hospital. And, I was trained to put in lines, to spark people up, to put in airways. I could do all of that. That was and there was two others who could do that. And if someone was dying, the other two would take care of the people who were going to survive, who weren't, were just beat up before the bus showed up, and would take them to the hospital. So I would stick with the person who was dying. So I saw a lot of that. So on this, paranormal with, Al and John, or no, really John and Al, he's always comes first. Basically, and you should go look at that one. It's pretty interesting. So I tell this story. So they wanted to know, everybody wanted to, did you ever see a ghost? Well, yeah, I've seen a lot of spirits leave the bodies, all that. But I saw a real, textbook ghost. And so we we get the call, and we're heading up to the trailer camp, and we're just thinking it's a heart attack, and but we haven't gotten we had really good communication between the sheriff's department, the fire department, and the hospital. Right? We had radios. If they were on a different, we could just snap to them, and they were digital too in those days. It was we had really good equipment, and anyway, so usually who's ever first on scene tells us what to expect, what we're going to ride into, whatever, right? And that's half the thing. You get prepared. Even if you're right in there, everyone's talking, okay, we're going to jump out, we're going to put the truck here, the this, the that, we'll get space with the bus, blah, blah, blah. We get our strategy on before he even showed up. But we're getting nothing, right? And we call back to the sheriff's office. So who's on scene? And it's like, Sergeant so-and-so. Now, he's a guy that we see a lot. We work with him a lot. We have a good rapport with him. And the interesting thing about that guy, he is as sensitive as I am. Now, he doesn't use it as a tool. Well, he does, but he doesn't do what I do. But he knows what I do. And he can see, for the year or so that we had worked together, and we talked about it. And our captain, our fearless leader, she also was extremely sensitive and could see this, right? And so it was quite interesting when we'd have these things and we could see all the etheric stuff. We kind of knew. And we worked, like I said, she was the captain and I was the medical guy, and the Sarge was the police guy. So we really worked as a great team. And we each, he had his team, she had her team. I had my three people who, did the medical thing. And then there were four other guys and gals who, when I say guys, it usually means women, who were really good. They were the people who cut the roof off, who knew how to take the person out of the car while the steering wheel is still in their chest, because to take the steering wheel out, you bleed to death, immediately. So if you have a puncture wound, you leave whatever's puncturing you in there, unless it's a shard, right? Anyway, so we respond to this trailer camp, and we the Sarge is out front smoking a cigarette. So it's pretty much, and nobody's doing anything. They just have they're putting the tape up around the thing and keeping people away. That's all they're doing. They're not really rushing around doing. So pretty much the guy must be dead. So Sarge is out there, and I goes to Sarge, what's up in there? And he goes, just, peek your head in. And so I peek my head in, and a guy has offed himself, and he has a Smith & Wesson 44, a, Dirty Harry gun, and he puts it in his mouth, and he blows the whole back of his, if you look at him straight on, like this, could tell nothing's wrong with this guy. You look at him back here, this whole everything is gone and blown all over the ceiling and the wall behind him. The brains, blood, it was a mess. And then he bled out, it just kind of squirted out like a fire hose up here, all over the back wall. And his lazy boy that he was in, and he wasn't back, he was, sitting up and kind of like this. And he was like in a pool of blood. The lazy boy was in a pool of blood. And it was a nasty scene. And, I've dealt with blood, and, blood within the first hour of it getting out of the body is really slick. And, ooh, you don't want to fool around with it. Then it gets really smelly, and then there's every bug in the universe comes. Where do they come from? Who knows? But they're all over the place. Anyway, he's seen it all, and he doesn't want to go in there because there's another lazy boy just across from the coffee table, and his ghost is in that lazy boy, and it's screaming because he's looking at himself, and his brains are all over the place, but he's corporally 100% there. I mean, just, and he is screaming, and he is screaming, and he is screaming. And then my captain comes up and pokes her head, and he goes, "Al, this is all you." And the other people who can't see like we can, they don't want to go in because even though they can't see it, can't hear him screaming like I can, they just, one guy goes in there. I mean, the scene was god awful, so he just throws up. And so Sarge goes, "Well, let's all go over there, out, downwind of this, and wait for, I've called the ME, and those guys can take anything." So they all go over there, but I go in because my captain, she goes, "So, what are you going to do about that apparition?" I said, "Ooh, well, I'll go in and talk to it." So I go in and sit down at the couch, put my feet up on the coffee table, and say, "Hey, how you doing?" And I look around, and his mail is on. I say, "Oh, hey, Bob. So, why'd you blow your friggin' brains out? I mean, you don't look too bad. What was wrong? So you were like 65, big deal. You're getting your Social Security and a pension, and so what? I was just so, nothing ever happened in my life. I wanted to be a rock and roll star. I wanted to have lots of sex. I wanted to be a millionaire by now. And all that, I get $2,200 a month." I said, "Buddy, really? I mean, I'm living on $300 a month, right? And this guy blows his friggin' brains out because he's got 2,200, and he's going to have it for the rest of his life. And his trailer is quite nice, Furniture was nice, and he had a lot of nice knickknacks. And I said, "So why don't you just go travel? Why don't you, well, I don't like people. I'm scared to leave my," I said, buddy, blowing your brains out, look where you are. You're going to have to let go of this. "I can't." And he just went back to like grammar school when the bullies picked on him, in high school when they made him, when he had zits and he had braces, and he just went on and on and on. And of course, he is reiterating JB's life, and and it's like, so I'm telling this story to Al and John's paranormal new show, and the people were pretty wow, right, and asking questions, and John was like I said, you should go see it if he hasn't taken it down. But it was pretty amazing because I tell the whole story about me trying to convince this guy to just give it up and leave him, and he wouldn't, right? So the Emmy guy comes in, and he looks around, and he's been seen a zillion dead people, and he's pretty relatively sensitive, but he is buffered. I'm kind of buffered too, so it's not bothering me. It really bothered Sarge, and it kind of bothered Captain, which I was surprised because she saw some of the most amazing things, but she never saw a ghost like this, right? So I went in there and talked to her, and the Emmy guy comes in, the one who can kind of sense things, and he goes, "So he's still here, isn't he? You're talking to him, you're trying to get him out of here." I said, "That's right." I said, how do you feel?" I mean, he goes, "Well, the other guy won't come in. You're going to have to help me." I said, "I'm not touching that body. No way, Jose. You're going to have to go read your crew the the riot act." And I said, "Matter of fact, you should leave and go smoke cigarettes with Sarge and the group and get your gang, together. And, by that time, a few of the firemen will probably help you too. But fire women, the guys. But I'm going to give me another 20 minutes just to get this guy out of here." And so, I gave him every alternative. I said, okay, we can do ceremony. We can breathe. We can pray. Just let me say there's two prayers I know that will shoot you right to where you want to go. And all he could do was go on and on and on about how his parents, his dad didn't give him any space, and he was awkward around his mother, and everyone was against him and made him feel terrible. I said, so how'd you do your job? He goes, well, I just worked in a lab and I worked in a cubicle and no one bothered me. And then I grew old and, you know, this guy wouldn't go. He just wouldn't shut up about stupid stuff that you're supposed to be able to let go by the time you're seven, or you become neurotic like this guy. And he was so neurotic, he dragged it into the afterlife, right? So I said, okay, buddy, fine with me. I'm just trying to help here. And so, there's going to be other folks that come visit you, They won't be as nice as me. So, and here is our lead into Sasquatch, right? So, the firemen and the ME and a couple of cops, roll the disgusting body into a bag and take him away and leave the mess, right? They don't do anything. And so, I give him one last chance after everybody goes. I said, I got to go, buddy. So if you want to head to the light or you want something, even more exciting and different, it's called your Akashic record. You might be able to come to some, finality here, get closure. And he goes, no, I can't. I'm still here. I'm still here. And he just went on about his parents and his childhood and how the football coach made fun of him and he didn't want to play football and he was fat and the zits and the braces and then he went to college and, he was really smart. He was the best, that's why he thought he'd be a millionaire. But he couldn't deal with people. So, I said, well, I did my very, very best, and then he got mad at me. Well, you can leave, just kind of like every time I've gotten thrown under the bus here. It was almost the exact, right? I said, buddy, you shouldn't really act this way because the more you act this way, the things that you are drawing to you is like, anyway. So we left, and the life goes on. I'm working for Gus, the electrical guy. I'm doing my thing at Cornell, and I'm being Mr. Fireman. And I got I got 4 or 5 girlfriends in the fire department. They love. I mean, one of the reasons I stayed there 3 years, those women wore me out because people who are in the ER, firemen, policemen, ambulance folk, they're adrenaline junkies, right? And I'm not. But I'm there for a good time, and I was, in my latter 30s, pushing 40, and these girls just, because I had a really swanky pad across the street from the firehouse. The firehouse was just a garage. We had a little, microwave and a sink over there, but really to relax, we just walked across and came into my place. And girls, it was a nice little bungalow. And I had a really nice living room, dining room, kitchen, bedroom for me, and then 2 other little bedrooms. And the girls would hang there, right, and sleep there. And if it's snowing too hard or whatever, if they were too tired, or they just wanted to party. And so my house, that little cabin bungalow I had for 2 years was like party central for everyone, from the EA, from the fire department, the police department. There was a not only sheriff's office, but a highway patrol. And it was great. I knew everybody there. I never got a speeding ticket whatsoever, right? Never got a parking ticket. Never got any kind of ticket, right? And those guys had the best boo. They would take it off of somebody else and either sell it or we'd smoke it. So that was quite an interesting 3 years. But, so, I have my life. I'm doing other stuff, we have other calls. We do this and that. About 2 weeks later, the guy who owned the, whatchamacallit, the trailer camp, calls up the fire department and asks to speak me. That guy who was stayed in the room and did something for a half an hour. I'd like to talk to him. So I talked. Okay, hey, what's up? And he goes, can you come up here? And I said, yeah, sure. When it's now. And I said, well, I don't think we're going to be doing anything. And I'm not scheduled. I was just hanging out here. He just luckily caught me. So yeah, I'll be up there in about 15, 20 minutes. That's really great. That's really great. So I go in and I meet him like at the gate, and he goes, he gets in the car and says, let's go over to my trailer. Go over to my trailer. Eden, you are a mind reader. That's exactly what happened. So the guy goes, because he owned that. The guy was renting that trailer, so he owned that trailer. And half the trailers there, this guy owned, and he rented them out to the old folks. And the other people had their trailers on that site. So anyway, he tells me, that he couldn't get anyone to even, people would go in there to clean it out, and they couldn't stand 10 minutes in there. And there's no body, no nothing. But the sensitive ones, couldn't see the ghost, but could like really feel it. And he's been in this scene enough where he knows, because a lot of people, like we kept going up there twice a week. So he kind of was relatively sensitive and at least aware and awake enough to know what was going on. And so he goes, so you're one of those priests or shaman or that you can get rid of that spirit in there. And I said, well, I tried my best. He wouldn't listen. He goes, well, it's not only freaking, spooking, I can't rent that place out. I can't even get it cleaned out. I had to go in there and I would come out and throw up. And I've seen worse scenes than that. I was in Vietnam. So I said, well, okay, I go to chat. And I said, but this is going to cost you something. He goes, I'll give you anything. And I said, the best I can do is give you, go in there, check it out, give you an assessment, and then give you options. I did my best to try and get him to go, but he didn't. And he's been there now 3 weeks, so he is like stuck. So let me see what I can do. But and so I go, how much money got? And this is, again, my teachers tell me that I can't charge. Oh, this will be $19.99, and if you buy it now, you'll get 2 readings. No, can't do that. But what I can do is ask for a gratuity, and that's what I kind of tell him. I said, this is going to cost you something. He goes, what? I said, nothing you can take off your taxes. It's a gratuity. And he goes, gratuity? I said, yeah, like a tip. And he goes, oh, okay. He goes, what do you want? And I go, well, it's kind of, I can't tell you what I want. You have to give it to me. And usually when I have to do something like this, the best way is to go, how much money you got in your wallet? And he takes out his wallet, it's got $300. Let's go. Okay, just, look at this cup. Stick the money in that cup, right? And if you got any money, which you probably do, stuck around here, get what you think it's worth for you to get rid of this problem, and take that extra money and throw it in that cup. I'm not going to ask you for it. I'm going to let you figure it out. And again, I'm not going to promise anything, but I will give you a course of action that will take care of the problem. Okay? He goes, okay. And if he didn't take anything more, $300 is more than enough for me to go in and talk to the guy one more time. And now this guy is. So he's like, it's like he had stayed in that seat for 3 weeks or a month or however long it was. And he hasn't taken a shower or a bath. He's crapped all over himself. I mean, he is like, luckily you can't, I didn't smell it, but he didn't, he looked worse than he did the day he blew his brains out. So anyway, I'm going, so you ready to leave? And he's like so psychotic that he can't tell that he's not dead. which is the worst. When they don't know they're dead and they get stuck like that, the worst, the worst, the worst, the worst. So I basically try to talk him down and get him to a place where he can at least have. He goes, those hairy things, those hairy things. And I said, I told you, if you didn't go, things were going to come that really bothered you, you know. And in your state of mind, you wouldn't understand what they were. And what he was being visited by wasn't just, the hairy guys, but the worst, the reptiles and the insectoids, because they live for that energy. This is like hitting the trifecta, like, getting the lottery. These guys, so they were flying around and, picking at him. And I mean, he was a mess. And so just as he's screaming, he screams even louder. And I turn around and a Sasquatch kind of walks right in and like, looks at me. I look at him. He realizes what I'm doing. And actually, the Sasquatch isn't there to steal the energy. He is trying to be compassionate and motivate this poor guy to move on. Anyway, these guys don't talk. They will talk to you, so here we are, 41 minutes and 41 seconds, another synchronistic moment on the counter. So tonight, where we're going is the land of the Sasquatch, right? And there, they can telepathically communicate with you, right? And they also have their own language, so if you can learn their own language, you can listen to that, but you'll hear it. And they'll explain everything, all their scents, all their pheromones, all their technologies. They will do the whole story, right? Yep. So, so basically what happens is the Sasquatch kind of gives me the 411 that you should go and tell that guy just to set this thing on fire, right? And that he will stand guard to keep the insectoids and the reptiles at bay. And so okay, he doesn't say, but he kind of puts that little thought in my head. I go out to the guy and I go, okay, buddy. And I look at the thing. He's got $1,000 in there. I go, all right. So you got another $1,000? And he goes, what are you talking about? I said, well, man, we've been coming up to this place, scraping people out of their things for you for years. And you never give the fire department a nickel. And he goes, okay, what do I have to do? And I said, you're going to have to burn that thing down. And I'm going to call up my, back to the house and have them bring up the pumper, and we will set a perimeter, and we will put our hoses out, and we'll set it on fire safely and burn it completely. And I will do my little mojo, and there's a friend here who will help me, and we will cleanse this space. And he goes, okay, another $1,000. That's cheap. So get on the phone, they come up, we set it on fire, burn it to the ground, and I tell the captain, and she's a shaman in her own right. I said, so, Chief, you got any sage on you? Oh, yeah, I got a whole bag of it. I said, great. Bring that up, too. And tobacco, fresh tobacco, whole tobacco, not cigarettes, tobacco, ceremony tobacco. Oh, yeah, I got a bag of that, too. Okay. Because she's an Indian. She's part of the Iroquois Nation. She's, Grandpa David's niece, anyway, or grandniece. Anyway, so part of the family, right? So they come up, she and I do our little circle thing and put salt around, she brings up like 10 pounds of salt, and we put a circle around the perimeter of that. And our fire department, our colleagues, they don't question anymore. They've seen us do weird stuff before. They've seen weird things. They've experienced weird things with us. So they're like, okay, whatever they're doing. And then we set it on fire, right? We burn it to the ground. I mean, just keep it burning till there's really just the last, because it's all aluminum. You keep putting enough kerosene on it, that shit will go to the ground. And we just kept burning it, and keeping the perimeter safe. And I had my truck, and so the chief took off her bunker suit and sent the rest of the crew back to the house. And she and I did ceremony there for, you know, another 40 minutes and cleansed the whole thing. And the Sasquatch was there the whole time. She saw it, I saw it, nobody else saw it. And that's what these guys are. They're dimensional characters. If they want you to see them, they see them. If they know that you have a little better eyesight on that other dimensional realm, then then they know, hey, they're okay. They're cool, right? So, and they got a really sick sense of humor. So he sticks around and keeps the insectoids at bay, because those guys, the reptiles, because they're in form, so they show up as human beings, but they're still reptoids. And okay, so we've got a few minutes to read what you guys have said. Sasquatch, yep, Sasquatch. Skinwalkers, yep, shamanic. Have you ever experienced with creating a tulapa? You're gonna have to tell me what that is, S2. I mean, I might know it as another name. I may not be pronouncing it correctly with my 4 teeth left in my head. Burn the trailer right. Eden, you got it. You got it. You got it. You got it. Homunculus. Okay, thank you. See, Jane, I even think of it. She puts it up there before I even ask. This was like a while back, and she knows. Okay, yes, homunculus. Yep. I got stories about them. Thanks to the Zardo trailer, I have had stuck in my head for an hour. Well, there could be worse things stuck in your head than Mozart, Mozart's one of my favorite. Him and all the jazz boys. And Joni Mitchell and Gil Scott-Heron. Live in North Carolina. Yep. North Carolina's got you have to understand the energetics of all of this has everything to do with ley lines. And I don't know if you saw one of my kind of March or April, I was down in the holler, and I was doing shows about Woodstock, and I did a show in the morning about Woodstock, but it was about the wood in the forests, and the road where I was living was cut into a hill, so all of the roots of the forest were exposed, and all of the fungi and how they were all intertwined were exposed, and through that are all of these energetic fields, and that's what makes the difference between a field and a forest, and healthy natural environment and a dead one. And so in North Carolina, in basically, the Smokies and the Appalachian have more energetics in them than Egypt. The energetics was the same as the one that's in the Smokies and the Appalachians, but it kind of died, about 6 billion years ago. So that's why there's so much Sasquatch in North Carolina. Have you heard Credo Uto? David Icke interviewed him. Yes, yep. He's an interesting guy. Anything Icke does is I love that guy. He's got his own quirks, just like your sensei Al Bob, but he doesn't give up. He's like a dog with a bone. And the other thing I like about that guy. He. There are a lot of people who want to be the hero, who want to be the movie star in the spotlight. No, he doesn't want to be. He just knows he has to do what he's there to serve. That's what I really like about Ike. I like Ike. And then Sarah, what I think they're jerks, but they have a nice side. You're talking about Sasquatch. They're the jerks, right? I said they have a sick sense of humor, right? And we're going there tonight, in about 10 minutes. Tupelo, it's like thought form. Yep. But, I keep saying this good thoughts, good words, good actions, good deeds, good outcomes, right? So those guys have really nasty thoughts, bringing nasty words to nasty actions, nasty outcomes. Part of what causes wars and conflicts and really catastrophic, when the kids bring out the automatic weapons and start to wax their school, it has a lot of Tupelos, or the other name that I know them by. The imagined ghost. Hey, brother. Claxton. Dr. Jack. Good to see you. Eden. Fish. Claxton. Okay. So, Eden, you were talking about watching, Zardos, right? That's what you listened to it for an hour, right? Scotchwood would throw small stones at my neighbor's house, but they were really asleep. And mean people. Again, these guys have a sense of humor. They really do, And one of the savings grace of Sasquatch is like they really prank the insectoids. And you have to realize that ant is an insectoid, right? Two different things. Insectos are soulless creatures who just live on people's suffering. And that's why when you co-create with love, it gets rid of them like that. You all need to eat mushrooms after this. Yeah. But the beauty of the Akashic Record going into state is like the best acid you're ever going to have, the best poutine you're ever going to drink, the best bud you're ever going to smoke. And you don't need any of it. Okay, so here we go. It's 53:23, so get yourself in a comfortable spot. The child mind so much more open to spirit realm. Well, because they're not, they haven't been, what's the word, oppressed by prejudice of opinion, right? They don't understand the fear of religion. They don't understand the construct of the authority, my authority of the political economic structure. So they're not controlled by any of that. They drinking from the fountain of the suspension of disbelief. So they have they see something that they don't disbelieve it. They feel love. They don't disbelieve it. They feel charity. They don't disbelieve it. They don't say, oh, I have to be mean and steal and cheat and lie. And to the point you're like Donald Trump and you don't know the difference between truth and lies. You don't know that you're not stealing. You don't know that you're being cruel. And there is a little child, little baby Trump in Donnie, right? And so, and that's why he has been graced, or we have been graced, for him being the position he is now, because, man, he is going to blow the doors off of the lie. He's going to blow the doors off of being mean. He's going to blow the doors off of stealing and cheating. It's just going to be, right? And the fact that he goes, no, I didn't, he'll lie and he's on video and then he will 20 seconds say, oh, I didn't say that. But sir, you just said that and we have it on, on videotape and audio tape and it's going on the satellite right now, going all over the planet. And now you're lying and that's going down and all over the planet. And I go, it's fake news. So that's why Donnie Trump is going to go down in the anals. The anals. The assholes of anals of this. And he's going to break the bank. He's the guy who's going to, I'm getting rid of the dark state. Well, he's not talking about the morons in Congress and Senate and the institutions of our government. No. He subconsciously is talking about the insectoids and the reptiles and all of the above. So, I mean, he is just a cloned, today is the clone day. Obama's cloned, Lock Her Up is cloned. All those politicians are cloned. All the, Hollywood actors and singers, they're all, just such sad cases. They have been MK Ultra butterflied, from day one. And you, the cadre, for some reason, me and you guys and other cadres around the globe, we are more the, savage artist in the first person. We were born and suckled at the tit of love's co-creation. Yeah, we had a hard time. Yeah, we had, we took our lumps. But, Johnny was like, he just goes and goes about how terrible his grammar school was and middle school and how they made fun of him. Well, man, when I was in high school was a torment. Well, all he did was like this. No one really picked on him. But when I was in the seminary, they tried to kill me. They tied me to fire pipes and beat me unconscious with baseball bats and 2x4s. And I woke up in a hospital with broken ribs, broken wrist, broken fingers, broken ankle, I had a compound fracture. Nobody got in trouble. And they did it over and over again and punished me and made me do this and do that. And my parents wouldn't take me out of there because you're going to be a priest, suck it up, And luckily, my godfather was a cardinal, got me out of there so I wouldn't die. He said, I thought you would change things for the better. And you will, but you can't be here now. So when I hear people complain how hard it was, they were mean to me. Well, try and get beat the crap up by Nazis for a year, right? And I gave it as good as they got it, right? So, but that's a whole nother story. And if you go back and look at those things, and guys, I really, really, if you can take this off of my YouTube, if you can download it, it's all good. If you can say how to, send it to you if you need that. Because John Boy is going to take it all and put it on his channel and call it his and own it and monetize it and try to make movies out of it. And on a shamanic side, hey, that's cool. I have no problem with that. But the one little problem is that he will re-edit all this up so it won't have the same, shamanic feel. But on the other side of the coin, that's okay too, because whatever he does will make it, it's like, Obi-Wan Kenobi when Darth kills him, you're just making me stronger, So there's that. But I would truly love to have an unedited, unabridged version of my work that if it gets gone off of YouTube, and I have a sense it's not going. I have a sense that the powers that shouldn't be, if they were going to take this, if they were going to stop this, they would have stopped it a long time, especially in the last few visits to some pretty amazing places, So I'm just giving you the 411 on JB's whatever. And I may not be here either. I mean, not physically. I'll be physically, but, we've been snowed in here for since Friday night. And so we're getting a little cabin fever. And he's like, every half hour, wanting to throw me out, but he goes out and steps on the ice and nearly falls on his butt, so he knows I can't drive down the thing. And then he feels, I'm sorry I did that. I would say he's done that and said he was sorry, and blame me for things like, are you spitting in my food? Been making food for him for 2 years. I eat out of the same pot. And that is what the ghost in that lazy boy recliner was. And that's what John has to look forward to unless he can let go. And he's 40, 41. He's got a lot of years to turn around. He's got a lot of talent, a lot of greatness in him, and hey, he had 2.5 years, give or take, of his own personal Sensei Bob. Go back and look at the early videos of me telling my stories, and just what he tried to do, and what he said, and then people were like aghast, and they went, "What the fuck are you doing, man?" Blah blah blah, and he basically took half of those things off of his channel and stuck them in some place, and then he knocked off on those singular ones. So people couldn't respond, couldn't watch them and say you're fucked up, and then he had to like take all of his responses off because then they would just went to other things he did and would anyway. He needs to stop doing that. Now we have been sending him a lot of loving energy, and a number of you guys watch his things and are very kind and beautiful to him, and that's good, and hopefully that will. But and again, all you have to do is look at JB, and he is the canary in the coal mine, and he's my buddy, so I don't give up on my friends. And before we go into state, I just want to say, so a number of people called me out of the blue because they've kind of started to see these things, and I mean, friends I've known for 30, 40, 50 years. And, we would speak every now and then. I had my phone number. I've had the same phone number for 20 something years, maybe 30 years. And so they know, hey, Al keeps his phone number. And, they basically, I 3 or 4 calls before I went on. And it was really beautiful because they were just laughing hysterically and going, these people really don't know who you are, do they? Because they've been with me through a lot of interesting events, last 50 years. And so they, I had this one friend, when I met her husband is really, we are like, we come from the same place, Long Island boys, New York boys, city boys, art boys of the 70s, photographers, so, and he's stuck at that. His whole life has been photography. Well, I've done all these other things, and I would pull him into all of this stuff because he was my buddy, right? And for a good, I don't know, 10, 15 years, I lived in the same place they did and involved them in all these crazy things I was doing. And so they know. So when I first met her, I knew him first. When I first met her, she's like, no, you're full of crap. No, no. And she, then, now that she's, known me 30 years, about 6 years into it, she stopped saying you're full of crap and going, I can't believe this. I can't believe this. I can't believe this. And then about 8 years into it, she was going, okay, now what are we going to do? And gang, that's where you're at. But you have drank the juice of suspension of disbelief as a young child. So you were ready. I didn't. I mean, a lot of people have to it's like John. It's like I've spent 2.5 years hoping because man, he's got so much juice in him. If he could just let it go and be who he really is. Forget about A-lister. He'd be on another planet. So anyway, okay. Well, look at that. It just hit 1 hour, 4 minutes, and 44 seconds. So I think it's time that we go visit our friends, the hairy people, right? And so we call them Sasquatch, right? You will find out what they call them, in their own language. Yep, exactly. Well, just send, yeah, to my, again, get a hold of me personally through the dude awake 42 at Gmail, right? And if you're in America, you want to talk to me on the phone, do that. And I did have a WhatsApp thing, but it disappeared. I wasn't really using it, so maybe, anyway. And, you guys send me, information on how to navigate the digital world. And I am such a, moron. Not a putz, a moron, right? Donnie Chump is a putz. I'm a moron. An idiot savant. That's me. I actually have a union card in the AFO CIO local 350 of the idiot savants. So here we go. Oh, look, another 1 hour, 6 minutes, and 6 seconds. So everyone comfy, everyone in a chair or lying down or in a place that's comfy. Okay, and we're breathing in that 20%. Out to 30%. Your conscious mind is totally relaxing to your breath. And your conscious mind isn't your consciousness. It is the little squirrel in your Rolodex. The wacko monkey in your adrenal glands, right? And they are the connective tissue to the illusion of your avatar thinking that you are that ugly bag of water. You are that mud puppet. Realize you're not. I'm going to count from 1 to 3. And as I do, you're going to go into a deeper and deeper and deeper state of relaxation. Your conscious mind totally focus on your breath. You're breathing in that 20% more. Thus, taking your body, your conscious awakeness of your avatar, disconnecting that from your autopilot, right? And so your autonomic system, right? That keeps things, the bag of water running. So your bag of water is running fine, and you, conscious mind, is leaving the building, right? And your body, your avatar is breathing in that 20%, breathing that prana, energizing your blood, creating the polyphase alternating current of scalar energy that's illuminating with photonic energy your cells through your mitochondria, and you're taking that photonic energy and illuminating your imaginary mirror right behind your eyelids where you have REM sleep, see it clearly, and you are taking that light and illuminating your subconscious mind. And your conscious mind is totally focused on your breath. The autonomic system is now under the control of the energy of the prana, and you are illuminated photonically in your imaginary mirror, and you've lit up your subconscious mind. Subconscious mind is not a scary place. It's a library. See it clearly. Walking into the library, see it clearly. You see the fireplace right in front of you, gigantic fireplace, all these big stones. But no, there are books that make everything. Books on shelves, books that look like they're brick, stone, and the whole library is made out of Akashic records. And in front of you is a reading table, and a strong photonic light is coming down and illuminating the whole table photonically. There are no shadows, right? And you sit down at your reading table, and to your left is your librarian, your animal totem, and your guardian angel. Now, you've been doing this now for a few weeks, so you're very comfortable about going into state, right? And your librarian brings your Akashic record. You open it up. You put your right hand on the right page, your left hand on the left page, and you lean into your Akashic record, and you empty all of the fear, anger, frustration, anxiety, self-loathing, all of the negative energy of your illusionary world, right? Put it all in. All of Lucifer's negative energy, all of that fear that the insectoids prey upon you, right? All of that anxiety that the other creatures of the ownership class hold your avatar, your bag of water, make you a mud puppet, and they hold you in incarceration. Whereas your consciousness is held in your Akashic record. That's the little server that's holding your consciousness, right? And your free will is your ability to transport your conscious mind into your subconscious and see that it is just the little photonic wave, that pebble in the pond, making the tsunami of love's co-creation. See it clearly. And now you put all of that anger, all that fear, all that self-loathing, all that avarice, all that vice into the book, and boom, you close it. Right? And you will go back at your leisure. You should be going into state 5, 6, 10 times a day. Whenever you feel tired, whenever you feel stressed, whenever you feel any kind of anxiety, just close your eyes. See your imaginary mirror illuminated by photonic energy. You're breathing that 20% in and breathing out that 30%. And within just the flitter of your eyes, you're in your subconscious, you're in your Akashic record, you're there now. You have emptied yourself of all of that anxiety, fear, hate, loathing, and you feel like a balloon, right? So you are floating, and you walking over to the open doorway that leads to your id. That's the bridge between your subconscious mind and your superconscious mind. Your superconscious mind is your sanctuary of your own choosing, where love's co-creation exists in all eternity. To love you unconditionally, forgive you unconditionally, support you unconditionally, because you are not a sinner. You have done nothing wrong. You've just been parlayed. Go look that word up. Anyway, so you're walking through the doorway and you're bringing your guides with you, your librarian, your animal totem, and your guardian angel, because may need them, but most of all, your sanctuary of your own choosing is their funhouse, their amusement park. They can go on all the rides. They know how to work them, how to ride them, because, they know you better than you do, because you're still kind of in the environment of the illusion. Yes, you guys are awake and awakening with every moment that you're in the Akashic record. And that's why I want you to go there every time you feel anxious, upset, tired, right? Or need to know something better than Google. You can trust your Akashic record, not so much not when people say you're at the top of your id, the bridge between your subconscious and your superconscious, and you're looking down and you are seeing the meadow right in front of the gazebo, and you see everyone's picnic blanket and basket out, and you kind of walk down the bridge. You step onto. Now, you were feeling good before you walk through the open doorway of your superconscious mind, leading to your superconscious mind. But now that your foot is on your superconscious mind and you're stepping into your superconscious mind and you're there totally 100%, you feel ecstatic. Whatever anxiety or fear or bump or bruise or sore muscle, it's gone. It's healed. How do you think this beat up bag of water that I have still hanging in here. It's because of this process. And I am glad and honored and really happy that you are my cadre and that you're here with me. So we walk over to the meadow. We sit down on our blankets. We look what's in our picnic basket. If you're a little hungry, have a little nosh. You know, that picnic basket is there. It's your, when we go to the Crone's farmhouse and we go into her coat room and we get our capes, our cloaks, and there is our magic bag there. You know, that's the picnic basket. You know, there are many different forms. So we lie down, we let the sun of our beautiful sanctuary warm us up with photonic energy, and we kind of ooze into the ground, and we connective tissue to connective tissue to all our relations, and we have become one with that, which gives us great power, great facilitation. And we get up and we walk over to the tree of knowledge that's right next to the lake of the link, and our guides, you know, jump in the water and splash around and are having a great time, and we look at them and just smile to see that they're like children, and they're experiencing that joy, and we experience that joy, see it clearly. And 3, you're in a deep, deep, deep state of relaxation, your conscious mind totally focused on your breath, see it clearly. And you're looking at the roots of the tree of knowledge, and you see all the little fissures, all the little breaks in the roots, and the little gold light coming out. And this is all the back doors to all the lands of the doorways, right? And when we go in through the back door, we get to go into those lands without really needing to take an avatar with us, right? Buddy, no problem, you know. Do what you got to do, and our love is always with you. So in dream time, you will see it, you know, when you can access your Akashic record. It's there for you, this experience, because, you know, your consciousness is in having this experience, whether you're conscious of, you know, your avatar, which is kind of moving into you. It's okay, buddy. We love you. We're here for you, and you are here with us. You know, we're I don't want to say carrying, but we are carrying you with us. So we look down at the roots, and the sliver opens up. The gold light comes out, and we are going to head into the land of the Sasquatch. Now that's the name we have given them. We will find their real name and their clans and their tribal settings, their traditions, their history, their mythology, their spirit guides, their librarians, and their angels. And we find ourselves sliding into that land, and we're walking into a tribal setting. See the lodges that they live in. See the fires that are burning. See their larders and what they eat. See their longhouse where they deliberate and educate their young. See it clearly. See them playing games, making music, doing theater, hanging out. I've just given you topics to go into, not descriptions. So you need to fill your Akashic record with those images. So I'm going to be quiet now. I'm going to leave you in the purple swirl. and I will be back. You're there now in the Sasquatch land. And first thing, learn what their real name is, because with understanding the name of their tribe, their clan, that's how you can share and see them on this side. When you can see them and know them and feel them and share this experience with them, they will be your friends. They will come to you. They're everywhere. You will see them. You will not be scared. And they are buddies to your guardian angel. They come from that clan. Your guardian angel, not just angels in particular, because there's so many types, but your guardian angel is part of the clan of the Sasquatch. See it clearly. Enjoy the journey. And three, you're in a deep, deep, deep state of relaxation. You've gone into your Akashic record. You've illuminated yourself with your breath through your imaginary mirror. You have eliminated all of the anger and fear and hate that was in you into your Akashic record, which you will go back and look at your own leisure and realize that in the book, it's no longer in you. And you can experience and go, oh, wow, that's why I did that. That's no big deal. Oh, why did I get, and you will be able to have what, if you have a little journaling book and look and write down what you're seeing, you will have what the Freud called Gestalt, lightning understanding. See clearly. You have been now for many weeks with the clan. And what is their name? See their name. And 3, I'm going to be quiet. I'm just going to sit here and meditate while you are still in the land of the Sasquatch. See their names, get their clan names, their tribe names, their individual names. Have fun with them, play their games, eat their food, share their love's co-creation. See all of the things that are similar in you with who and what they are. See it clearly. And by doing this, they will always be around you in the most positive of ways. They will always be there to protect you on multidimensional ways. And these guys are the best at scaring all the things that go bump in the night, all the boogeymen, all of the insectoids, the reptiles, all of the people who don't have a lick of empathy. The Sasquatch do. Not only that, they are some of the only creatures that not only have a consciousness, but have a free will. See that clearly. This is one of the things that truly connects us. See it clearly. And I'm going to be quiet now, and you are going to listen to their griot. There's walking up to you, to the circle you're sitting in, their version of Sensei Al Bob. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil, as it was in the beginning, is now, ever shall be, world without amen. As it was in the beginning, is now, ever shall be. And every day, in every way, we take the piece of love's co-creation, make it stronger. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for our sinners now and the hour of death. Amen. Hear our prayers. Give us strength to serve love's co-creation in this time of the open window. Give thanks for being born in this time of opportunity to be able to become greater than what we are individually by being a cadre, a clan, all our relations. And this tribe that you were with, this clan that you were with of the Sasquatch, see their real name, have that emotional bond, and they will be with you from here on out, watching your back along with your guardian angel. Just think of that. Just think of the power and love that those two have, protecting you arm in arm. One in front, one in back. You're set. And hear the story of their griot, their Sensei Owl Bob. Kind of like my cousin. Or kind of what I look like when I'm in my Sasquatch outfit. And once you'll hang out with these guys long enough, you'll, like I said, see what you have in common with them. And I'm being drawn to tell you a story of the Sasquatch as the griot of the clan, of the Sasquatch Sensei Owl Bob. And this is how I became a Sasquatch. See it clearly. So back in 85, when I was part of the U.S. Psychotronic Society, and I hung out with Preston Nichols, and I hung out with Al Bielek, and all the guys and gals from the UN that I helped start the alternative technology. That was, the beginning of the Institute for Aesthetically and Adept and Appropriate Technologies, was an NGO at the UN, and I started that in 81. And 82, 83, 84, 85, I was involved in the Stop Shoreham campaign. And Long Island Lighting Company and the Rockefeller brothers that own Manhattan Trust and also, Citibank and all the other New York banks that were connected through the Fed, the World Bank, and all owned by the Rothschild entity, were bringing online as many nuclear power plants in shamanic areas. And Long Island Company built, because J.P. Morgan, who was Chase Bank before the Rockefellers, basically owned Nikola Tesla. After the collapse of 1899 or 91, there was one in 91 and 99 that kind of crushed Westinghouse. And Tesla was totally connected to Westinghouse. And he thought Westinghouse would always look, because he wasn't a businessman, would always give him the money he needed and always watch out for his business interest. Well, J.P. Morgan, put his foot on Westinghouse's throat and basically said, okay, I'm buying you and I'll let you be the namesake of this and I'll let you keep your fortune, but I want to own Nikola Tesla. And so he did. And Tesla went off in the 1890s, and went and did his Colorado Springs experiments where he learned all about zero-point energy and the vacuum and all the energetics of the ages, where all the temporal lines were and where the geomancy was and all of the above, right? And he built a whole new generation of technology that wasn't even based on Einsteinian or Newtonian physics, right? Faster than light equipment, et cetera, et cetera. And so Morgan understood this, that this was power. And so he backed, Nick in his experiments, and Nick came back to New York and said, okay, I'm going to build what J.P. Morgan really wanted was radio, was something that he could communicate business information across the seas, right? So he didn't have to wait for the boats to, show up with the letter. And so Tesla said, well, I'll do that. But not only that, I'll have TV pictures and transport energy and matter, beam me down, Scotty. So his experiments, he did all of this. You go read the stories about what he did out in Colorado Springs. He put a big power plant there, so he'd have electricity to do things. He lit the city of Colorado Springs. And then he brought, lightning and time travel to that little village. And that's where people first saw Sasquatch, and other dimensional and other, the Venusians came down and visited, so did the Martians. There are cultures on those two places. And, the good reptiles who live in the ground, they came up and visited. And so, the folk in poor Colorado Springs in the 1890s were, up until 1907. Anyway, so he comes back to New York and tells Morgan, okay, I got everything you want. I want to build an industrial model version of this to show what this thing can do. And he builds watering cliffs in Shoreham, Long Island. And, he builds this 300-foot tower out of wood and puts a kind of gold copper skull cap on top of it, and has antennas sticking out in different directions. And, he has a power plant there, and to juice it, to prime the pump, as it were. And he starts doing his experiments. And he has receivers, on boats in Europe, all around. And the preliminary testing shows 100% this works, right? And he's ready to go into industrial thing. But Morgan goes, so Nick, so I'll have instantaneous communication, instantaneous transportation of matter anywhere I want, and unlimited free electricity delivered like to a little box in your house, and then that thing vibrates, and then all the synchronous, motors and lights and neon lights will work without ever having to pay electric bills. And Tesla says, yep, not only that, this energetic energy put within inside a cathode tube and put out in a certain way will cure all diseases, and people will be able to live a few hundred years, so they'll be able to grow old enough to learn something about their soul. And by the way, I'm working on a device that will be able to communicate to the other dimensions. And that's when JP goes, okay, good idea. Now this test device shows that it works, right? And I got a copy of all the blueprints of all of this technology in my safe, right? Yep. Good. Okay, boys, take down the tower, burn the factory. And that's what they did. And then J.P. Morgan first put him in the Waldorf and then put him in to the New Yorker Hotel for the rest of his life. And every time they needed him, like when they needed him in World War I, to figure out how to degauss big battleships so the German magnetic mines wouldn't, they were sinking the English Navy, right? And they wanted other kind of devices, and they wanted to start tinkering with the technology that, he was going, faster than light spaceships and ray guns and delivering energy destroying a whole city without even having an explosive. Forget a missile, forget an atomic bomb, just ba-boom. And that's what happened to California the last 2 years. Energy, you know, shamanic slash, scalar weapons, right? And so this is where the powers that shouldn't be kind of started. Now they go back, way back, to Babylonian banking, and that's where the owners are. That's where the insectoids and the bad reptiles and the other clans of dimensional characters and all of these things are representations of Satan's little tantrum, right? That is what evil is, right? And good is the only thing that exists. That's love's co-creation. But the word good doesn't even cover it. But within our limited logi, we'll do that. Now, you guys are in your clan homes of the furry guys, right? And they are teaching you their language, and their language is more from the heart. And as they're teaching you this language, they are giving you the tool to bring forth a more alternative aesthetic, right? So, again, if you get anything from this, you need to make that heart connection with your clan family of Sasquatch. You need to find their clan name. That's who they are. They're not Sasquatch. That's what we call them. You need to know their clan name, right? And your animal totem and your guardian angel will be able to fill you in on this because they are part of that clan. That's why they are your guides. See this clearly. So there I was being, I kind of went out to Long Island. I started a real estate business. Had my electric business out there, take care of my parents, and also to, the East Hampton, the Hamptons were heating up, and a couple of the nightclub guys who were my clients in New York wanted me to build clubs there. So I did, and that's how I got there. And it's also how I basically bumped into the Sasquatch. So here they are building, the Shoreham, Long Island nuclear power plant right on top. I mean, physically right on top of where Tesla's Wardenclyffe factory was. It was right on the corner of 25A and Tesla Avenue, right? Now, Tesla, when he was building this, he had turned pretty much all of eastern Long Island into a phased array, meaning first we had radar just going out in beams, right? Phased array is like a whole quadrant. He turned all of Long Island into eastern Long Island, from like Old Brookville to Montauk, into a phased array energy accumulator, right? And the people who are now owned the federal government, the national security state did not start with World War II in 1947 and Roswell and Truman. The national security state started with the War of 1812 and them burning down Washington, D.C. Now, all this information you're hearing out of the lips of your Sasquatch Sensei Al-Bab, the griot of the clan, the tribe. And the Sasquatch know this story really well because they were the brethren of all the indigenous people, all of the other tribes. You go to Lakota, you go to the Iroquois, you go to the Mohawk, you go to the Onondaga, all of the different clans, and they have stories about Sasquatch, and they know their names. And if you want to get to know a tribe in the United States or anywhere in the world, you ask just like the Roma, the Gypsies. You ask, and they are part of the clan of Sasquatch, the Gypsies, and that's why the Nazis burned them, because the Nazis couldn't fight the Sasquatch. They were dimensional characters, and they were righteous. And every time they went up against them, they couldn't do anything about the Sasquatch. But what they could do was murder the Sasquatch's, not avatars, but earthly clan, right? And that's why these different groups all around the world get wiped out, because they're connected dimensionally to other clans that have free wills and a consciousness, that aren't the heartless, suck-ass pieces of crap that the ownership class has, and that the manager class, the manager class barely, again, go see that movie about Dick Cheney, Vice, really is a good thing, because he loves his wife, he loves his kids, but in more of a, like they're a cult. And he will do anything to protect them and to gather power, because he's so scared of everything that he has to become the biggest badass and have the most money. I want to have millions of dollars so I don't have to worry about paying my bills. Well, ask the Sasquatch, do they pay bills? No. Did they join the, Babylon money magic? No. They have such a great sense of humor. They just go and throw poop at these guys, right? And Sasquatch poop is, they go at scat, pretty nasty, but if you're part of the clan, you can smear it all over yourself and be happy as a clam, right? So see all this clearly. So there I was, I got involved with the Stop Shore, it was called Clamshell Alliance. And I went to one of their meetings, and there were all these people it was just like Me Too and Black Lives, it was all these groups, and they couldn't organize or do anything or be, it's like here in Roanoke, they're putting in this pipeline, and the people don't even realize why they're putting in the pipeline. It's not to move fuel from Canada, from the sands, and from all of the fracking oil in upstate New York and Pennsylvania and Ohio and West Virginia. Yeah, it's going to carry all this gas from those places down to the coast. But what it's really doing is three things. It is those areas where they're fracking has some of the purest drinking water in the world in large, large quantities. That's why New York City's water is so good, because the water's bubbling out of this aquifer into the New York City water reservoirs. And it's amazing. That's why New York City bagels only taste like that in New York, because you have to boil the bagel first before you bake it. And the only thing that makes the New York bagel so great is the water, right? So they're destroying that water. Well, they have to move that. To destroy the water, they got to take that oil and gas and put it someplace, so they're putting it in the pipeline. Now, within 5 years, no one will own a car. Everyone will just have an app on their phone, and an Uber or a Lyft will show up, right? And it won't have a driver, because they will say, okay, we got the technology, and we've had the technology for autonomous cars, but we can't have autonomous cars if we're going to have a couple bozos driving the car, that the computer can't figure out what that moron's going to do. So they'll pass a law, no one can have a car. But it'll be real cheap. You'll be able to get an Uber, bingo. But we will, within 2 years, we're going to have all of this Trump stuff, all the government shutting down, is part and parcel to this, because he's going to basically declare an emergency, martial law. That'll be the end of whatever kind of, ersatz democracy and freedom we think we have, and we will be bought off by all of this new technology. You think your smartphone was great. Wow, this other thing's coming in. And you know who the largest dealer or manufacturer, or it's not going to be Tesla, it's going to be Apple. You know, Apple's kind of been floundering a little bit, spending a lot of money. Well, they're going to come out with the total package of autonomous vehicle and the operating system, and totally, why are they putting in 5G? It's not so you can have, you know, more movies on your smartphone. No, it's for the autonomous cars, and also to wire straight into your brain more than you're already wired into your brain. And so in 2 years, this is all going to come down, and it'll take another 4 or 5 years for it to be totally. But the major thing is no more money. Everything is going to be your biometrics, your face, not even your fingerprints, your face, right? So, you know, how are they going to, you know, and they're going to be biometrics. So you could have a hologram of your face, but still that won't work on biometrics. So that'll be your money. And everyone who will join the club, you know, they're thinking they're joining this new society, this club. Everyone will get like $3 million, you know, because people, oh, if I only had a couple $1 million, well, everyone will get them, you know. And if you give everyone $3 or $4 million, and everything is bought on Amazon, and you can just order as much crap as you want from the store, and it'll be delivered to your front door by a drone, the economy will take off like a friggin' rocket ship. And then they will say, oh, you know, not only does this technology do this, but look, it's anti-gravity. And oh, look, we can no longer do you even need that car. You can just go through this little portal and you'll be in Spain, you know. So all of this is coming down in the next 10 years. And the next 2 are going, right? So why are the Sasquatch in where they are? Because they wanted to get away from this. They were here. They were part of our clan. They were in the Garden of Eden. And they said, screw this shit. And because the multidimensional realms were there, they said, fine, they were smart folk. So they kind of cut their way into their own little dimension, put up a, you know, keep out sign, and all of the schmucks and putzes of Satan, Lucifer's illusion world of control, can't get at them. But they can drop in any old time they want. So there he was, you know, because I'm a Tesla-phile. I lived in his, you know, Grandpa Stoll was his number one electrician. I was taught in the dynamics of that technology. That's why I'm such a good electrician. So I kind of knew what was going on. And so I went to this meeting of the Clamshell Alliance, and their other name was Shad. And what is Shad but crap, shit? So I went to this meeting, and it was pathetic. And there was maybe 40 people there. And, you know, I'm a black lesbian, single amputee, blind, and we're against Nick. I mean, it's all these feathered little groups that wanted to just talk about their own little thing. And it was like a you know, emotional content, not about organizing. You know, I've been in the anti-war movement. You know, I worked with Ralph Nader in the 60s, and he was, you know, he saw how everything connected: the economics, the environment, racial harmony, anti-war, all of the above. And he was like one of the first people who gave me the 411, other than my grandma, on what was going on. And so, I learned how to organize. I was hanging out with old union guys, old wobblies, old anarchists. And anarchists aren't guys with leather jackets with a circle around. No, these are guys in frumpy suits who clean up cigarette butts because they don't think that the city government can do it well enough, right? And then they play chess in the park. So I learned to organize from those guys. Until, Ralph was the best. Then I kind of went into the anti-war movement, and that was sucked, right? Because it was just a bunch of these young yahoos with long hair, like Abby Hoffman, who then became a gigantic stock, manipulator. So, and then I went and worked in Los Alamos, Sandias, and saw what that was all about, and nuclear power. And I came back, and I got into I had these buddies in Adbusters. We were artists, and so we started doing guerrilla art, political guerrilla art, and that was Adbusters, right? And that became the No Nukes, and anti-power folk, and that was this guy named Lovejoy, who cut down the Vermont Yankee. When you build up, the NRC makes you put up a big tower if you're going to build it, where you get all the data, the which way the wind blows and all that kind of shit, from where the plant's going to be. And Lovejoy went there and clipped down the cables, and the tower came crashing down. The cops showed up. We waited for them and said, I did this, and handed them, the cable cutters. They arrested him. He went to court, and he fought this and said nuclear power is, going to kill everyone. And he brought in everybody from the Manhattan Project, the guy who invented nuclear health physics. And I went and hung out with Lovejoy when he got arrested. Ralph Nader sent me up there and said, this guy needs a guy like you, and take a couple of the lawyers with you, right? So, and we got him off. So I have some, serious organizing chops, And, I'm a strategist. That's why I became a demographer. Because to build a strategy, you have to see what went on before this minute. But most people, like Black Lives Matter, Me Too, all of those things are just coming off of their vagus nerve. They're not looking at any history or what it is or having any strategy or any of the above. So they're building this nuclear power plant, and it's not Babs and Wilcox. It's not Westinghouse or GE. No, it's freaking Lilco, and it's run by the mob. And, I know some of these guys from Local 3, and they've never done anything more than the most complicated thing they ever did was a 3-way switch. Anyway, I'm looking at this, and I go to, the corporate heads, and I say, hey, guys, listen. And I show them my credentials from working in Los Alamos, Sandias, Kirkland Air Force Base, United Nuclear, Gulf Mineral, all these, nuclear power and nuclear weapons. And I say, now I'm a filmmaker. I'd love to I'm going to tell your story. And they said, oh, that'd be great. We'd love that. We'll pay you for it. And I said, oh, great. So I take my little video equipment in, and I bring my mother, who's like almost 6 foot. She looks like a Greek goddess, at 60, whatever she was. And she's a very smart woman. And she has a real sense of what's right and wrong. And she's looking around and sees the place is a total mess, and they're building a nuclear power, and I've been involved in this shit for the last 10 years, and I've been telling all kinds of stories. So, she never had a political bone, one way or the other, but she was always about what was right or wrong. So, anyway, she goes in there, and I don't put me in front of the camera like Michael Moore would do. I put my mom in front of it, and she's walking through and saying, so who, look at this place. It's a mess, it's all, and she doesn't need my technical things. Her little spidey sense goes to all the fucked up, like she goes to this control tray that must have 1,000 control wires in them, 16 gauge, and they're all red. And they're all to all these different little places where they get terminated, where you stick the wire in and tighten the screw down on. And they all go to all of the instruments on the control panel. So there's like thousands of wires, all the same color, and they're not even labeled. So she looks at this and she goes, how do you know where all these wires are? And the guy goes, well, we have a computer and we connect all the wires and we put them in bundles so we know kind of which wire's which. And then when we can turn the computer on, it lights up and says, well, this wire should go over there and that one should go over here. And so she goes, oh, let me see it work. That sounds interesting. So the guy takes this one block that has maybe 100 wires going into it and that the computer's hooked up to, and not a single one of those wires is going to the terminal that it's supposed to be. I mean, they didn't get one right. And my mom goes, so here's one block, and she goes, 1, 2, 3, 4, and there's like, I stopped counting, on the first bank of this control board, and there's 100 of these blocks, and it looked like there's maybe 1,000 of these blocks all together. And so if there's 100 wires and it's 1,000, that's like 100,000 control wires. And this one block, that's your computer that tells you which wire is which, is saying that not a single one of these are right. How do you know? Because it's a machine, as far as I can tell, is just saying that it's the wrong wire. It's not saying take that wire and put it over in this terminal. And the poor guy is like way out of his league. He can't even explain it. And yet he's the guy who's running the machine and connecting the wires. And so she goes over to this table that's full of it's like a light table, full of x-rays, right? And every important weld that they make in this, because, they have this unbelievable high pressure steam system keeping the core cool, right? And so she's in this table, and it's like just thousands of x-rays, right? Of all of these welds, and they got the labels, right? And there, what an x-ray looks like in the dentist, like that little black film, and then this gray stuff. Well, my mom was a hospital administrator for her whole, before she married my dad. She knew everything about everything in medicine, right? So she knew everything about everything in reading an x-ray. So she's looking at them, and she's like taking this and putting it in a pile here, and she's making different. She goes, ma'am, what are you doing? She goes, well, as far as I can tell, these are x-rays of the same weld. And I don't know anything about welding, but it looks like it's a perfect weld. There's no any, breaks or things in it. But the little labelings on all of these x-rays say that they are different welds. And he goes, well, man, we have to, of all the critical piping, we have to x-ray every weld. And she goes, well, how much does that cost? And he goes, oh, about $3,500. The welding guy and the x-ray guy and all of that. Oh. So you budgeted for, like, how many welds are how many critical welds? And the guy's looking through his paperwork. He goes, there's 32,000 critical welds that we have to x-ray. And so she goes, so you budget the utility company that, using the Price-Anderson Act, gets the money from the ratepayer before this thing even goes online. And they're making, and she goes in her head, about $16 million on that. Now, if you just use the same x-ray on that one perfect weld and just label them as those 30-something thousand x-rays, you'd be making a lot of money in your pocket. And she just did that time and time again. She knew nothing about this process, but she was brilliant and had a clear sense of what it is, right? So, we walk out, and I've got the videotape, and I make a number of copies, and I give it to a lot of people, newspapers, and I worked for Metro Media, and so there are a lot of media people I know. In those days, some of them had integrity, but the one that was most important was, so I worked in that industry. I knew some people at the NRC, Nuclear Regulatory Commission, And these guys all came from the Navy, and nuclear power was their religion. They wanted to do it right. So I sent 6 of these guys a copy of that video, and it blew their freaking minds. And they said, well, if this thing opens up, it's going to blow up and kill like 6 million people, and that'll be the end of me and my job and my career and my dream and my religion and nuclear power. And so basically they came down like a ton of bricks, because they were, this is when Mr. Reagan and really Mr. Bush, W.H., was George, G.H., was in power, and Dick Cheney was there too, and they just passed a bill, not even a bill, an executive order, where this plant didn't have to go through the NRC hearing. They had to go through the paperwork, but it was called fast track. Well, the guys in the NRC said, no way, we're going to slow this down a little bit. And they started looking at everything, and they were finding unbelievable catastrophic problems. And with each one of those problems, Ronald Reagan signed the executive order to say, oh, it doesn't matter. They signed over 2,000 executive orders just on that nuclear plant, because that slowed them down enough for me to get all the people who were righteous. And so there were 6 of these grandmas who were at that meeting that I met. And of all of the 50 or so people who were there, they were the only ones who seemed to be righteous. And I went over and talked to them, and they were. And these girls had been in the face of Lilco for 15 years. And Lilco wanted to build 20 of these nuclear power plants, and they had slowed them down enough where they were only had 1 in construction. So, and they knew all the laws and the this and the that, and they were just grandmas. They just, but they saw, like my mother, who was a grandma, how terrible this was all coming out. And one of the women, Mary, no, it was her first name was Mary, Irish last name, and her husband was the second in the corporate structure of Long Island Lighting Company. And she would not have sex with him until he stopped the nuclear power plant. Well, he couldn't do that, so he wasn't having sex with her. And he wanted to get a divorce, and they were Catholic. And she said, nope, not going to do it. I'll fight you in the Catholic Church. You will spend your whole eternity with your soul roasting in hell. So he had to stay married to her, and and she wouldn't have sex with him. So that's the kind of commitment these grandmas had, and they were loads of fun, and they really could cook, and they loved me. They just loved me, because I kind of organized everything into a strategy. And I never wanted to be the guy up there on the podium. There were 3 grandmas who were great. I mean, they just looked the part. They could speak. They were extemporaneous, and they loved everybody. So they were, with my, okay, this is, I was like, this is our strategy. This is how we're doing it. This is like, and we laid it all out. So one of the things, so I made up all these different working groups and gave all those working groups the authority to do their thing in their working group. They didn't need to, we didn't need to have meeting after meeting after meeting. We wanted to do stuff. And I used the organizational structure of the Iroquois Longhouse to do it. And it really worked great, because the powers that be couldn't attack anybody, because nobody was the boss. Nobody was the singular person that you could, if one person, oh yeah, they, don't wash their underpants right, and put it on TV and try to, destroy the whole movement because they didn't wear underwear or didn't wash their underwear. So we were like unstoppable, just like you guys, just like the cadre. Anyway, yes, John, I'm doing my chat. Yep. Sure, open the door. Come on in.
How's it going?
Ah! It was getting hot here, so I dropped my pants. So I was airing out my privates, and that scream you heard was John opening the door. Anyway, so let's go back to the story. And there you are, three. You're in, Sasquatch's clan. You are part of the family. Here I am, the griot of the Sasquatch. I am your Sasquatch Sensei Al Bob, and I'm telling you the story about Long Island Lighting Company, how I met my first Sasquatch. So, I was just everywhere, doing everything, and then finding the right person to take it over, right? So one of the things I said to the crew, okay, guys, we have to show our commitment. We're real organized now. We're really humming, but now we have to, because the whole, Long Island Lighting Company bought all of Suffolk County, meaning Shoreham. The utility took over. Nobody had property taxes here. They built the best schools. They did everything, and everyone loved, in Shoreham and in that little district, loved Wilco. So we had to convince these people what it was, and they just looked at us. You're stupid, crazy, commie hippies, gay, and it's all grandmas, No, I don't think it's really. Anyway, and so there was a large college there, New York State College there, Stony Brook, and I went over and I found a whole bunch of young folk who really wanted to get involved. Brought them over, and they were like sociologists and environmentalists, and about 200 of these kids, right? So we now had a nice little force, and they were all white and clean cut and didn't have long hair. They were like really bourgeois, but wanted to do the right thing. Anyway, so I just rode around everywhere in my truck, talking to everybody, seeing how everybody, and then I just made these little clots of groups that would change those minds, because we had to change the political structure, because we had to convince Mario Cuomo, because he was the one guy who had the political and legal authority to stop the plant if it was proven to be unsafe, right? So I'm doing all this stuff, right? And I'm trying to think every which way, efficiency, this, that. So one of the things I did, I went Brookhaven National Laboratories right over there. I went over there, and I had this friend of mine who was working over there, and went over to visit her. And she goes, I got to show you something. And so she takes me in there, and they have a particle accelerator, kind of like CERN. And at the time, it was one of the bigger ones on the planet. And these guys were playing with clones, time travel, and dimensional vortexes. And I had been telling her about this stuff back 10 years ago when we were living together, and she was brilliant. And, she just moved up the food chain of brilliance, and she was like head of one of these things, and she got herself read in. And once you get read in, you're not getting out. And then she said, I need you to come see something. So, I kind of found out she was, I looked on their website and her name was there. I called her up. She goes, you're here? Oh, wow. You're over there? So she came over to my house. I lived in this place called, it was right on the ocean, on the Atlantic side. And, anyway, so she told me what it was, and then she said, I'm going to write you, I'm going to make an appointment in my book. So at the gate, they'll let you in. They'll give you a badge. I have the all access to everything. And then I'm just going to take you on a little tour, and you're with me. Say nothing. She went through my closet, wear this suit. And I did that. And it was like off the friggin' hook. And then I realized why they're building this plant. This is not for power for the friggin', city, the Long Island, there's like, 250,000 people. This is enough juice for 2 million people. They're going to use it to break through time and space barriers of a whole nother kind of dimension that they've already been doing this, but now they're going to be doing it in like a militarized way. And it's like, Whoa. And, all kinds of little grays were walking around down on the 15th level underground. I mean, no one knew that this thing went down like 50 levels underground. And again, no one still does know what they do there. So go on Brookhaven National Laboratories website and start to poke around that, see what you get. And what you will find is because our government, that one quarter that's closed down, you will find all of these websites are closed and they will stay closed. Anyway, so I'm going through all kinds of, and I'm just digging deeper and deeper. And that's what I do. I just kind of dig deeper and deeper. And so one of the things I want to look at is the utilization of electricity, right? So the New York State Power Authority has this big map and shows, day by day, hour by hour, the consumption of current. So I'm looking around and I see the number one place that uses the largest amount of current in New York State, not New York City, not any of the industrial centers, but Montauk, Long Island, that has a population of 2,200. And I'm sorry, this little hamlet of 2,200 uses more electricity at certain points in time than all of New York State, including New York City. Now, there's something wrong here. So I drive out there, and I have, the New York State Power Authority maps for a number of years. I go back to the point around 1963 when their utilization from that point on to where they started taking numbers in the 40s was, like nothing, like a town of 2,200, not like all of New York State, including New York City. So I have these all rolled up, about 40 of these maps of each year. And I go, and the place I always go to, that's always like the helpful man, is the police station. I go to the sheriff out there and I meet the sheriff. He's sitting there with his cowboy boots. He looks like Andy, looks like my Uncle Leo. And I know, okay, this guy's going to be okay. And so I say, hey, buddy, I'm from, I tell him that I'm from Shoreham, like the power plant, right? Wilco. I don't say I'm from Wilco. I'm from Shoreham, right? And he just looks at me, and I look like Mr. Businessman. I don't have long hair these days. Because I got all the, I got real estate business, I got electric business, I got a whole bunch of businesses going on. And excuse me, we introduce each other, and I say, listen, I take his desk. I said, where's the empty desk? Here's an empty desk. And I roll out these things, and I show him, starting from the last year, all the way back to where in 1960 something, the consumption goes to what it should be. And I said, so listen, what uses electricity like this? And he goes, I want to show you something. And he goes into his filing cabinet and he pulls out a number of these files for the years that I have the electric blueprints for, right? And he matches each file with that year, right? And every year up to 1963, there hasn't been a murder in Montauk since like 1911, right? Then, once the electric current started to be used in large quantities, more than anywhere else in New York State, the murder rate in Montauk went off the rate. And it happened, wasn't like for the whole year they had 15 murders. No, that when you see that they're using 8 quadrillion megawatts in Montauk for 2 hours, 12 murders are occurred, right? And it was like, whoa. And we put those two things together, and the guy goes, this started when I was an officer here. I was here 3 or 4 years before the murder started. And then, I've been here ever since, and now I'm the sheriff. And when I tried to bring the FBI in, or the State Bureau of Investigation, or the highway, the state troopers, everyone says it's not their authority. He has to deal with it. And he's like, this is so not right. And he goes, this is the first correlation anyone has brought to my things. I said, so who's using the juice? And he goes, well, you're the smart one. And he goes, I have a map of the county, and it shows where the utilities, the power stations and the transformer stations and the transmission lines are. You tell me. So he rolls this thing out, and that was one thing I couldn't get. I could get the state big picture, but I couldn't. When I saw Montauk was it, I said, well, you guys, you must have the outline. And they go, oh, no, that's owned by Luco. And, it's a private thing, and that's proprietorial information. And I said, no. You guys are the state power authority. You need to know where everything is. And that used to be a public utility. You guys used to own it. You go, well, and he goes, well, we don't have it. Sorry. You should be happy we're giving you what we're, okay. And so, but he, as the sheriff, did have that layout of where everything was. And there was this 980 line, which is the largest kind of transmission. That's the kind of line you have going into New York City or into a place where you have 500 aluminum smelters, right? And it goes straight over to this defunct U.S. Army radar station along the coast, right? And so we get in this police car and we drive over there. And I'm kind of familiar. I know about radar because that's like scalar technology, microwave. And so we go in there, and the fence around and it was a Nike missile base back in the day, but it's totally abandoned. So where the gate was and the blockhouse and all that stuff, and it's all kind of funked out. And from the road, it looks like it's totally abandoned. Well, we go up to that gate, and there's enough of a space that we can squeeze through and go on site. So we do. And he now has his jacket that has his badge on it, and you can tell he's a police officer by his coat, right, and his hat. And he's got a gun, too, and a radio. Anyway, so he doesn't turn the radio on. We go in there, we start walking around, we start going to buildings, and everything looks like all hell broke loose, right? And behind, there's this big, long tower with the biggest fucking radar assembly I've ever seen. And most microwave, there's a thing called it's basically a guide, a microwave guide. And it's not a wire. Microwaves can't kind of go on a wire. They have to go through this thing called a horn or a guide. And most of them are like 2 inches by 4 inches, in most military radars of this type, that kind of big antenna, and the horn points at it, and then it's a parabolic antenna, and it kind of sweeps, right? Well, this fucking waveguide is like as big as a bread truck. It's like 14 feet by 12 feet. It goes all the way up there, and the horn is like the size of a house, and the antenna is like the size of a football field. And whoa, and you couldn't see this antenna and this tower from the road. And so, big concrete tower and big blast doors at the base. And on one side, off about 100 feet, there is another big blast door where a road kind of goes into, but big blast door there, right? So the big blast door in the tower is blown out, right? And mangled. I mean, this thing's like a safe, and it's mangled. It's torn right off the hinges. And we go down the metal staircase into, and he's got his mag light, he flies it down there, and the light is really bright, but the thing goes so deep, the light disappears. He looks at me, I look at him, and he then puts the light on the metal staircase that kind of goes all the way down to the bottom, and would take us a while to get down there. And there's an elevator over there, but the freaking elevator doors have been blown out and the wires have been pulled out, right? And the elevator car, where the wires are pulled out, the cables that bring the elevator up and down, the car is like pulled through the door, but doesn't quite fit. So it's halfway stuck in there. And we look down the steps, and it is like, you know, 2 or 3 levels down. All the steps are just tore up. I mean, tore up. And the guy's going, I don't feel good about this. I say, hey, I'm with you. So we come out, and what do we see standing right there, like nose to nose, is Sasquatch. And he's got this shit Indian green on his face. And he turns around and farts in our face and runs away from us. And the smell is like it's purple. And it's like, making my eyes water. And he runs about 100 yards and stops and kind of dances around a little bit. And then dances down the road to where there is this thing going into the ground. And that big door is blown out too. So the sheriff looks at me, I look at him, he goes, what was that? I said, well, that was either a 8-foot guy in a really, really amazing, costume that looked real, and he had real, dietary problems, or I think that's what they call a Bigfoot, because look at that foot, that's a pretty big foot, because he's kind of right there. And then he runs down he goes, so what are we going to do? I said, he had a smile on his face. He didn't eat us. He could have killed us, He kind of drew us out from being in that really scary place over there. So, well, maybe we should go check him out. So we, saunter quickly over to the big garage door that's been blown out. And he is like maybe, I don't know, 100 feet, maybe 100 yards, no, 50 yards, 20 yards, but at a fair distance from us. But that area is kind of lit up, right? And I'm looking around, I'm the electrician, I'm looking for the lights, fluorescent lights, this is pretty bright. What kind of lights is this? And I could not find a light source. And I look at him, and he's, we're in the doorway. He's down 50, 100 yards. And he's well illuminated, and there is not a shadow on him. And so the policeman goes, well, it's only one of him. It's really well lit. We can really see all the way down there. And I'm kind of interested to see what's down there. And he's not really threatening. He still has that shit in green on his face. And he's still dancing around. And I do have my gun. And I said, I would say, don't bring that gun out unless really, really neighbor, because I think this guy could be our friend. And we might need a friend here because this is so off the hook. He goes, yeah, I've never seen anything like this. So we kind of, again, saunter, walk quickly, but not run, down this inclined plane. And there's all of these levels, right? A little parking thing for this, level. And it just keeps going down. And it doesn't go around in a circle like a frigging, parking garage. It just goes down. And we get kind of down there, and everything's lit up, and all the doors into these floors are, again, like big safes. And so we kind of go, So again, he's going down, stopping, dancing around, going down, stopping, dancing around. And so we come to a floor, and he kind of goes off on a little parking deck that's there, and the big garage door is kind of, again, ripped out, right? And we go in there, and this is the day when the IBM 360 was the hot shit computer. It was like as big as a school bus. And we walk in there, and again, it is illuminated pretty well where we're walking in, but within, 200 yards, and it's a big space, right? And that horn that came from that antenna came down through this opening and came down into a gigantic crystal. I mean, gigantic. Like, if you were to make the size of a school bus into a square, that's how big it was, big school bus. And that horn went right into the crystal. And there were nodes all the way around the crystal that had other horns coming out of them, going into a device that had many, many cables going into the IBM 360s. And there was another device off to the side that looked like at this, I had studied Kabbalah. I had a landlord that was a Jewish rabbi, and he wanted me to. I was studying at his Lubavitcher to be, a rabbi. It was in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, and before the hipsters moved in, and he says, I want you to be a rabbi. I mean, you can read Hebrew and Latin and Sumerian. I want you. I got the books. I need you to read, and you got to be a rabbi to read them. And I said, but Rabbi, I'm Catholic. I'm Irish. I'm Italian. I'm German. Part of my family burnt you people. And he goes, well, no one's perfect. Anyway, so I learned all those things, and I really studied the Kabbalah. And one of the major things of the Kabbalah is their mathematical equation of the tree of life. And if that frickin' box over there wasn't the metaphysical, scientific, engineered by Lockheed Aerospace thing of the Kabbalic tree of life, and there was another horn pointing straight into this, all I can call it is a tunnel, that went into infinity. And the light that where we were, that was bright and didn't have any shadows, cast light into there, but not all the way. And it's like there was darkness there that kind of absorbed this light that didn't throw any shadows. Now, I kind of knew that light that doesn't throw shadows is photonic light and is infinite. So that light should, goes in every little corner. And I couldn't even tell where it was coming from. So I was saying to myself, that light should actually go a lot further than that. Something there is absorbing that light. There is some kind of vortex or event horizon. So the guy, Bigfoot, is kind of right in front of the light. He's still well lit, and he's kind of dancing around, and we're a good 100 yards from him. And he smiles. He doesn't wave at us, but he smiles, does a few more curly-coo dances, and runs straight into that blackness. And he's illuminated, and it's like, again, event horizon, and he, bing, disappears. And I look at the sheriff looks at me, and all of a sudden we start hearing boots coming towards us down the ramp. And we kind of turn around. By the time we take a few steps up towards, they are all around us. And there is a good 100 guys in Nazi uniforms, but, without the swastika, but the black, helmety, and they have the Stuka gun. It's like better than a AR-15, but the SS had them. And these guys have those guns. But they're new. They're not antiques. I'm going, And they have a bunch of stuff on their belt that is like Star Trek. And they are going, what are you guys? Don't you know this? Didn't you read this out there? And the sheriff, he is not, he's the sheriff. So he goes, listen, guys, let's see some ID. And they like stops them in their track. They're like, what? And none of these guys are like above a lieutenant, right? And now they're big and bulky and mean and got nasty weapons, so they're pretty much used to people just cowering in their boots. They're not used to a guy who's like in shorts, tennis shoes, and a Hawaiian shirt, and a police officer, right? Who's not in like a Nazi uniform, but he's Montauk town police sheriff. You can tell it's so he kind of pulls out his wife. Said, "I'm the sheriff of this county. I have the authority of the health and safety and law and order. So your boys, unless you can show me saying that you represent the U.S. federal government within the construct of the Army slash National Guard slash somebody with a lot of alphabet numbers on it, get the fuck out of my face. And you think you can kill us here and leave us here? Forget about it. I'm the sheriff. I'm going to go missing. This guy here," and he makes up a big story about me being some, super duper rocket scientist from Brookhaven. And so that's enough for these guys to go, "Okay, you got to get out." So we did. We sauntered our way out. We got up there. And that's when the limousine with the guy, who wasn't in the uniform but had $1,000 suit and, had a well-trimmed white hair and a beard. And this guy looks at me and he knows the sheriff and my name. And he calls us by name and says, "Gentlemen, get in my limousine." And the sheriff looks at me and goes, "I don't know if we should get." I said, "No. We have to complete this. I mean, you've already done a great job of standing up to these guys. We gotta, they'll shoot us down like dogs if this guy, and we're like, talking out of the sides of our mouths, and we're a good, but I'm sure he has some kind of listening device, listening to every whisper we're saying. So let's go get what do we? If they're gonna kill us, they're gonna kill us. What do we got to lose, right? Let's play this game out. So we get in the limo. And he starts to describe what this is. It's, very secretly based, this is high security, and it's above, he kind of says, this is above magic. Now, your average person would have no friggin' idea what friggin' magic is. Well, I knew what it was. And, the sheriff looks at me and I go, yeah, okay, so what? And he says, "Well, this is still an active base." And I said, "Active base? This thing has been torn apart. Who tore this apart? And who's the guy in the monkey suit with the big feet?" And then he kind of breathes in deep and he goes, "Okay, are you ready to be read in?" And I say, "Nope. Take us back to our vehicle." And he goes, and the guy in the white hair goes, "Good choice." So he tells the chauffeur to drive us back and the gate is open. And I say, "Okay, we're getting in the sheriff's car right here, and we are going to go back, and I'm going to go back to my superiors, and I want, your business card that I can call and get you. I don't care if you're in an undisclosed place, but," and he goes, "Well, you came to visit so-and-so at Brookhaven. That's where I have my office." And I go, "Oh." And he goes, gives me his business card then, and he goes, "That's where I am, and that's my direct phone number." And I said, "What I want is I have a group in my research group that I want to come here and poke around here for a little bit. One time, right? And I don't want those Nazis hanging out. Send your superior boys to keep an eye on us. And I'm sure you got every kind of surveillance, everything down there anyway." So, and he goes, "You're talking about your friends in the Psychotronic Society." So I go, "Yep." And he goes, "Well, if it's Preston Nichols, Al Bielek," and he names off all my buddies in the Psychotronic Society. He goes, "We won't have to be here." And he goes, "You call me in a week, I'll give you a date. You'll have a whole day to poke around. Okay? And you can even take pictures." And I said, "Okay, sounds like a plan." So that was the first day I met Sasquatch. And I will continue this story at another time because, let's see, I'll put my glasses on, see what time it is. So 2 hours and 39 minutes. So I want to read what you guys have been doing when I was telling you the story as a Sasquatch. Yep, I can see the chat. Yep. Yeah, that's about fish. That's right about when John came in and found my junk. 22, that's an interesting number. Go check out your Akashic Record Dragon. Stinkfoot, yep. The Center Horizon. See, buddy, I'm glad you stuck in there. Yes, I have heard of Tim. Enlighten me. What is that name? Again, you guys just need to jangle my chain and then I can. So tell me about that. But what I want to hear is what you guys saw and still are seeing because I haven't really quite walked you back. But you can navigate all you want. I mean, you don't have to wait for me to count you back here or count you back into your Akashic record or anything, right? You can. I'm just showing you where you can go and how you can go there, and you can go there at your own leisure, you know. So, but I want to hear what you saw down there in and what is their clan names, and did you make any personal connections because these guys are going to show up in your dreams, in your life, in your everything. The psychotronic generator. Yep. Well, that's basically a Tesla device / Wilhelm Reich device / Preston Nichols, you know. And all those guys. Preston got it from going into state and seeing Wilhelm Reich's, and because I told, Preston was, and if he's still alive, he was really a brilliant guy. And so was Al Billick, and so was Duncan. They were all involved in this stuff. You know, Duncan and his brother Al Billick, they were on the Eldridge, I looked at them energetically, yeah. Now, people have so screwed with these guys' brains that they can't tell what's up and what's down. And that, if you look at Al Bielek's books and, the videos of all his lectures, he kind of started out with the, U.S. Psychotronic Society, but we were a bunch of, it wasn't like it is now where anybody could come to these things. These were all engineers and all people who belonged to, who worked for Boeing and Sperry and Grumman and Lockheed, and all those guys did, and they would work for them, and they didn't even know it. But because we have free wills, you had to be read in. It's a ceremony, and every time I was in a place where you're a smart guy, you already know what's going on, but if you really want to know what's going on, you should be read in. And I would say, nope, this is where I get off. Thank you very much. You want to go bowling, hiking, go to a movie. Not a problem, but sorry. And usually my handlers were always pretty strange and beautiful women. I had this one, I was in this one group, and she dressed up like, not Annie Oakley. Who's the other, she got into trouble all the time and was really good with a gun. Anyway, this woman would dress up, she had buckskin dresses and buckskin hats, and she wore 2 pearl-handled .45s. So, and every time somebody wanted to read me in, I'd say, no, I don't think so. I'm just an artist here. I just play with light. Hoochie. Yeah, she was definitely a hoochie girl, that's for sure. Oh, the clan name. Haochiti. That's right. It's almost Lakota. Haochiti. Yes. And Hapto. Yes. Okay. Very good. Fish, you got some new friends, baby. Oh, it is better to learn. This is very true. You guys are really stepping up now. Calamity Jane, thank you, Mr. Mike. Yep, that was that was her name, Calamity. Well, guys, you do have the best of defense. You have love's co-creation. You have your guardian angel. You have your librarian. You have your animal totem. And now you have a Bigfoot clan watching your back. And the thing that you need to learn from your Bigfoot, and you need to start hanging out with them in your Akashic record. Next time we go in state, or if you're still in state, right next to the fireplace, there are 3 or 4 really comfy chairs that would be great, and a cocktail table where you can have guests. And that is every time you go into your Akashic record, and when you breathe 20% in and 30% out, and you go into state, illuminate yourself in your imaginary mirror and shine that light into your subconscious, and then you walk into your library, and those chairs are right there. And 9 times out of 10, you will find a Bigfoot of your clan sitting there waiting for you with some little delicacy they want you to try. Right? And what your Bigfoot is going to, and I'm going to use the term Bigfoot because Sasquatch is a bit of a dirty name. Bigfoot is description. They got big feet, right? So I'm going to call them Bigfoot because that is not negative, but a non-charged name for them. Because they all have different clan names, as Fish has, told us, right? So we have a defense. So your new martial arts teacher is not going to be me. I am your sensei, Bob, your griot. It will be your Bigfoot. And if you saw them in my vision of them going into the Montauk project, you can see they're pretty light on their feet, even for those big feet there. So they're going to teach you martial arts, but the thing they're really going to teach you is how to differentiate all the different species of non-free-willed creatures, and whether they're good or bad, nasty or dangerous, and how to be invisible to them, and how to realize that they're coming before they show up. So you can prepare. Get out of Dodge, be invisible, or have, drop the microphone like the sheriff did. He was like, then we became buddies. I had a really nice friendship with that guy until he had a heart attack. And then he retired to Florida. And I went and saw him once in Florida. But for those 8 years before he had his heart attack, He had such a great sense of humor, and he was the sheriff, you know. He was the top dog. No one could tell him what to do. And he was honest and forthright and really considerate and had grace, humility, and made everyone feel good. That's why they kept voting him in to be sheriff. He made them feel, even though, at least once or twice a year, 12, 15 people were murdered. You'd think that would put a town of 2,200 a little bit off. And all of this information is being rewritten as we speak. But what is lovely about this is that every neighbor library in those towns, one of those towns, especially the smaller they are, they will have a microfiche of the newspapers. And there's so many of them, and nobody looks at them, that the powers that shouldn't be haven't 86'd everything. They are planning to. I mean, it's on their to-do list, their bucket list. In the next 10 years, this is, you think things are weird and bad now? With each day, it's just going to get more surreal. And that's why we have a Donnie Chump. But the window is open, gang. See, these guys think they're going for the end game, but they're just hanging them by their fingernails. And we, the cadre, all little pebbles. We're such little pebbles. None of us will rise to the occasion to be bothered with. But together we make that tsunami of love's co-creation that will wash this away and bring all our relations back to, in the beginning, all things were dark. And then we won't have to be scared of the dark. And that's why we are genetically prone to being scared to the dark, because the dark is love's co-creation. Lucifer wants us in the spotlight, doesn't want us to be in the dark. Got it? And again, this was Clone Tuesday. And what the story of that is that we're all clones. In Star Wars, the clone army, that's us. But that's not our consciousness. That's not our free will. That is everything in this universe brought on by Lucifer's Big Bang of his, childish, outbreak. And yes, it's been around 6 billion, 16 billion years, something like that. But that's like nothing compared to eternity, right? So, here we are. Ooh, it's almost 3 hours. It only gets good around 3 hours, right? Gotta pick my husband up. Okay, Fish. Love you, buddy. From work, I really loved tonight. Yep. Mine was something like Magua. That's almost close to Iroquois. Okay, gang. I'm going to sign off relatively soon. I think 3 hours, 3 minutes, and 33 seconds will be my good night time. So we're doing great. Energetically, the cadre is really humming. I can see that you guys are practicing, not just with me, but here and there at your own leisure. Now remember, go into that Akashic record and start looking at, you're building up. I mean, just think how many times you've emptied out all of your anger, fear, self-loathing, and hate. I hope you are going to look at that and see where it's coming from and seeing what buttons are being pushed. Okay, Dragon. You have a good night, buddy. See you tomorrow. I'm going to drop off in about, 5-10 minutes, give or take. So, and again, I'm doing this, because I got to do it. That's number one. But I'm a strategist. So I'm not just doing this. This is to wake you guys up. This is to get the collective back together. And, I am a patient man. I have all this year, 2019, to get, it doesn't have to be the whole 300 of you cadre, but within that, there must be at least 10 to 20 folks who got it together enough or don't have anything that might as well be with Al in the deep green, and let's put the circus together. Because we have just that would be considered. We have the cadre. We now have to develop the shock troops. Those are the people who want to have a really good time and join the circus and create the enterprise of the Humanities Artists Trust International, umbrellaing the Institute for Aesthetically Adept and Appropriate Technologies, bringing it out to the people through the traveling video art circus, and the seed of enlightenment that we're leaving of love's co-creation will be known as the Freely Inquiring Society. And we are going to, at first, focused on universities, because they're a really hotbed of young folk who have minds that want to know, and they just need to be exposed to us. The institutions themselves, in their mission statement, says that what we're out to do is what they want to do, and if they let us come into their environment, we will turn them into the most amazing institution they could ever be. And that fits right into the idea of the career of the scholastic, the tenured professor. Wow, everyone will know my name. Yes, they will, right? And as a business plan, this is brilliant, because every university has a, student activity fund, and they got to spend every nickel of it before the next semester. And we can offer them an amazing, entertaining show. So that's why we need 10 to 20 folk who will be the shock troupe, who are ready to go. I mean, there are enough of you who I want to get out of here. My life sucks. So, not sucks, but, it's time for me to do something different. And it's same for me, right? I can't stay in this town. I can't stay here with John. I mean, I can stay at the Deep Green. It's heaven, from, end of April till end of October. But then, those next 4 or 5 months, I got to go someplace else. So, how Barnum and Bailey always went to Florida in the winter? Let's reverse it. We can, when schools are closed in the spring, summer, and early fall, we can be at the Deep Green. And if we make enough money, we can find an even better place, meaning the Deep Green is all right. It's really beautiful, and it can support maybe 10, maybe 20 people. But if we really get this thing, we're going to need to find some place out in the woods that was a farm at some time, that had some big barns, some big sheds, that we can build all the things that we need to build. I mean, where I am is a great place for ceremony, right? And it has enough camping for areas for 10 or 20 people to be really comfortable, to be in their own space. And it's Cadillac camping. I have a nice little cabin and a nice little this, and toilets and running water, and all of that kind of stuff, right? So, that's our initial base of operation. Can't be there now. It's too cold, too windy, too much snow. But like I said, end of April, we can go there. And what would be really great is someone could come and get me, and we go someplace like Florida, or along the Gulf Coast, and go hit college towns and start building our show. Just going in there. And so we need musicians, we need thespians, we need healers, we need IT folk, writers, photographers, videographers. That's, the traveling video art circus. Somebody that has a big truck that we could all just, put couches in the back. One of my favorite vehicles was a mail truck. And I made the inside of the truck. And it wasn't like one of the little mail trucks. It was a pretty big mail truck. But it had a beautiful roll-up door. And I turned the inside of the truck into a living room with a whole nother like deck above, which was the sleeping deck, which 5, 6 people could sleep up there. And I had couches and a kitchen, and we would go someplace and roll up that big, and it was like one of the walls of the house was out into the open, and it had one of the hydraulic lift things, so we could like put it down, and that would be our little back porch, and so we have this year and the next 3 to have a really good time and change everything as the little pebbles. And we're not going to be a gigantic army. We're not going to have pitchforks and burning torches. We're not going to have any of that. We're not going to threaten anyone. We're not going to have a point of view. We're not going to have an opinion, but we are going to co-create with everyone we come in contact with and love. And that's going to be our little secret weapon. And, the powers that shouldn't be are watching this big time. They have already isolated guys who are watching this, and they're keeping their eye, but they are also leaving us alone. Because within the AI, who really runs them, they realize that this is the one and only chance they got to get home. This is Lucifer. You're going to go home, baby. Aren't you? I mean, you're so nasty because you're tired of this bullshit. You lost. You lost the minute you had that tantrum and blew up heaven and the Big Bang. That was, you knew then that you had lost. And you're just doing this to try to drag as much down as you can. And you realize that you can't even do that. So Lucifer, you're listening to me, bro. I love you. Not as a follower, not as somebody who's going to no. Sorry, I'm not handing over my free will, buddy. But I'm going to let you attain one. That was the next step. That's why we were brought on board. Because everyone was supposed to have a free will. Not just love's co-creation. And all of our relations weren't supposed to be stuck into a dogmatic plan. So, again, this is, we're getting there. Oh, look, I just looked. The meter says 3 hours, 3 minutes, and 18 seconds. Okay, I think this is a good place to shove off. See you tomorrow morning. I love you guys. Remember to breathe that 20%, breathe out 30. Remember to go in state. Love you. See you tonight and the morning. Dream time.